he was one of three brothers. He was the middle of three brothers. There was Gavin, Mike and Ian. And they all went to Harrow. And then after Harrow, I think Gavin went off to Cambridge University.
Yes, Gavin did.
And Mike, Dad, went and chose to have a year or two in Europe instead of going to university. And so he went to France and Germany, I think.
Yes.
So that would have been, he was born in 1910, so it would be the end of the 1920s. And he did quite a lot of skiing, and he also did a bit of mountain climbing, and was always interested in mountain climbing. And so we've got a lot of very old books about K2 and Everest and all the mountaineering that happened between the wars. I think there was a sort of resurgence of interest in conquering some of these peaks. And then he came back and he went into the stock exchange before the war. But his heart wasn't particularly in it, and he then took up flying with a special corps unit. Yeah. So by the time the Second World War broke out, he was a qualified pilot and therefore was really useful to the Air Force.
Came to Middle Wallop.
And went to Middle Wallop.
Middle Wallop.
So there was a corps of them, and he's mentioned in some of the books, because there weren't very many of these pilots. They tended to be called the sort of gentleman pilots, I think, because they took it up in their spare time after work. But he was probably quite useful to them because he, knew German and knew Germany and the layout of places.
Yes.
Was he in a squadron or
604 squadron
of London?
Yeah. And his older brother Gavin was also in a different squadron. I think he'd done flying before the war too.
Yes, he had.
Like Dad. And Ian, his younger brother, went into the bank with Barclays, and he was out in the Sudan during the war. And he, there was a shipload of, were they wrens, landed nearby, and he was one of the hosts and eventually married Gwen, who they met during the war.
Yes, she was a wren.
She was a wren.
Yes.
And then after the war, Dad went back into the stock exchange for a year and hated it. And then change of career. And must have been a huge change for both of them. Mum to come suddenly be expected to become domestic and bring up 4 children. And Dad back to a fairly humdrum job without really a lot of money coming in.
Yes, no, we were very poor.
So,
but Papa was always there if we needed a bit of extra.
Yes. He also took up sailing.
Oh, he loved his
before
sailing.
the war.
Yes. They used to sail on the Welsh Harp.
Yeah, and down at Itchener. And so he and Gavin were fairly keen dinghy sailors.
Yes.
Which they then took up after the war again. And actually he enjoyed sailing as long as he was able, didn't he?
He loved it.
But you didn't share his love of sailing.
Well, no. I had quite a capsize. I can't remember what happened, Fiona.
Well, you expected to go sailing with him as soon as you married him, weren't you?
Yes.
Just tell Helen.
Oh, what's that? Yes, Margot, what happened?
I can't remember, darling.
Well, you didn't like sailing, did you?
No, I didn't.
But Mike was very keen on sailing.
I'd never done any, and to suddenly be... these... they're tipped up so much on their side, keeled over, I was supposed to carry on doing all the work in the boat when the boat was sort of on its end, or side, more or less.
And then you capsized.
And then we had quite a capsize.
And was Dad worried about you when you capsized?
Yes, he was.
I don't know that he was. I think he was more worried about the boat.
Well, he was more worried about the boat, but I came next to the boat.
And so you got into the rescue boat,
I got into the rescue boat.
leaving him behind.
Yes, to try and get this boat upright. I think it was a relief to him when I'm gone.
And they landed you the other side of it, Chichester Harbour, didn't
Yes,
they, at
they
Bosham?
did.
And so what did you do? Do you remember?
I can't remember, Fiona.
Did you go and knock on somebody's door?
Yes, all wet, and yes.
Soaking you were,
And they were very kind to me
and drove you the 15 miles back to...
and drove me. I said, well, for goodness sake, give me something to sit on, because I can't sit on your nice seat at the back here, or nothing. So they did.
And so after that, you just had babies, didn't you?
Yes, I had babies.
And made sure you didn't go sailing
I
again.
didn't. I was a bit of a disaster.
Well, that was all right. You sat on the beach and knitted.
Yes, I did. And then you and Patty came along. You were both very keen.
Yes,
But
we liked it.
Liz liked her riding.
She did. And Francis was keen on sailing.
Well, Gavin gave you a boat, did he?
Yes. Yes, he
My
gave us a
ex-brother.
Firefly later.
Where did you keep the Firefly?
Well, it was down in Chichester Harbour. That's where we'd sailed. And then
Most weekends you'd set off, wouldn't you?
some weekends we'd go.
You and Patty and Mike would drive off to Chichester. I mean, it was quite a long way.
It was 3-hour drive
Yes, after school,
and get back late Sunday night.
and for school on Monday morning.
Mm.
But it was worth it, was it?
It was.
Yes.